Hello, everybody. I'm Robert Scoville. I am the Senior Specialist for Live Sound Products at Avid Technologies. And today I am going to have a little conversation with my good friend Pete Robertson. Pete is the front of house engineer for Dropkick Murphys. And, you know, as is going to be the case for us all going forward, we're doing this across the old interwebs here. He is remotely located in Woodstock, and I am sitting here in balmy Arizona today, you know, so we're gonna stick to our guns here and talk a little bit about what the Dropkicks have been doing for the past year, about what Pete has been using S6L with. I mean, I'm really excited to find out what he's been doing here because they've been doing some really, really great things. So, Pete, welcome, man. Really good to see you. Can't wait to get into this and talk to you about this.
Yeah, Robert, thank you guys for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks, man.
Looking forward to this.
So listen, you guys, I mean, I know we're in a COVID lockdown and everything, but you guys have been busy.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's slowed a little bit, you know, the past couple months, but, you know, the guys are in the studio right now and, you know, it's a little slower going than most normal album processes with the social distancing and, you know, cleaning microphones at the end of every day. But yeah, they're doing good. The early part of the year with the live streams was absolutely fantastic.
Well, that's good to hear because that's what we're here to talk about today. So I'm gonna have you address that a little bit as we get a little farther into this.
Sure.
You know, just for the audience out there, why don't we just have you give a little bit of background on the Dropkick Murphys? I mean, you know, not everybody lives in Massachusetts, so
Yeah.
let's give some people some background on the Dropkicks and tell us, you know, how long they've been around.
Yeah, I mean,
made a lot of records.
they've been
Just give us a brief bio there.
They've been around quite a while. I want to say they started in '96. We just celebrated a 20th anniversary about 2 years ago, 3 years ago. You know, Ken, the band started on a bet. One of Ken's co-workers, his band had a gig, and he dared Ken that he couldn't put a band together in time to open up for his band. And Ken took up the challenge and put together a little band. Had never done this before, and I think they were originally called the Snots. And you know, slowly they just progressed, and you know, 20 years later, here they are. You know, I've been with them now for 7 years, but these guys are like the poster children of everything Boston. You know, all the sports teams we've done, NFL games, NHL games. We've done, you know, World Series on the field for the national anthem, and been on, you know, playing live on the float, driving through Boston for the World Series championships. So it's a little hard to swallow being a New York Yankees fan sometimes. You know, I definitely don't live that down. But you know what? The city of Boston is great to me, and great to Dropkick Murphys, and it's just been a privilege the whole way around with those guys.
That is so awesome. That is really, truly awesome. Well, you know, maybe give us a little background on that. I mean, what has driven this relationship between Boston and the Dropkick Murphys? You got any insight on it? I mean, where did this all just kind of evolve
I mean,
from?
you know, Ken, you know, Ken growing up in Boston, you know, he was involved in a lot of different, you know, a lot of different paths in Boston. Knew a lot of people coming up through with the band as they started. You know, he's got a lot of childhood friends who have become successful and gotten themselves into some great positions. You know, he's friends with Charlie Baker, and he's friends with the mayor and everybody. So there's a little bit of help with that. With the sports team stuff, you know, I think the band's notoriety, just as a rock band, kind of opened the door for them with the sports stuff. And the first World Series that they did, Dropkick wrote Tessie, which was one of their big hits. And it was kind of a joke between Ken and the Red Sox organization where, look, the first time we played for you guys broke the curse and won the World Series, so you need to keep having us back. And that was actually one of my first gigs with them. I went out and did, the band I was normally with was on an album cycle, so I was home for a little bit, and a buddy of mine called me up and said, hey, you got to, you know, you want to do this little 2-week thing? So I jumped in and did that and figured, okay, that's the last I'll probably hear of them. You know, I'm a heavy metal mixer. and not too much the Irish kind of guy. But I got a phone call a couple months later. They said, "What are you doing tomorrow night?" I said, "I got nothing planned." They said, "You want to come up and mix us for the World Series? We're doing the national anthem from home plate." And man, what an experience! But
That
yeah,
is
I mean,
so fantastic. I mean, the
it
vibe
really
there
is.
must have been just unbelievable, man.
It was incredible, and that was those were some of the first tastes I got of how appreciative Boston is of the Dropkick Murphys. And people that don't know Boston, they think Massachusetts is a big state, Boston's a big name as a capital city, but Boston's a very small, close-knit city, and everybody knows everybody, and really pull together behind everything. Their sports teams, obviously the tragedy with the Boston Marathon, so it really goes very, very hand in hand. And Dropkicks does a lot of charity work as well over the years.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so they've got themselves situated nice up there.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, if you've ever been to a game at Fenway, I mean, a regular season game is vibey. I can't even imagine what the World Series is like.
Yeah,
Especially at that one, when they won their first one. I mean,
it was unbelievable.
Or that one against the Yankees, or that one against whoever they played. I can't even remember now.
Yeah,
that was awesome. All right. Well, let's jump back a little bit in time here. I mean, here we are late in the year 2020, but like I said, you guys have been busy, and you guys were kind of you guys jumped into the streaming thing really early with this, right? I mean, you guys did some very early streaming stuff. Did you do a St. Patty's Day stream?
Yeah, we did a St. Patrick's Day stream that kind of came out of nowhere. We had a corporate event scheduled for June of 2020, and I think the corporate clients kind of saw the writing on the wall early in February and said, you know what, this COVID thing doesn't look good. We're going to pull the plug on our corporate event, and we just assumed that would just go away. We weren't going to do anything with it. And then as St. Patrick's Day approached, I mean, we were still sitting on the edge of our seats the day before, our St. Patty's Day weekend was supposed to start in Boston for the band's performances. And unfortunately, the day before, we decided in the best interest of everybody's safety, it was we need to pull the plug on it. And this corporate company, they work a lot with our audio production company up there, Events United. And they had been doing some, they do a lot of stuff for their local church community. So they had a sound stage set up in their production area, big video wall, lighting set up, everything. They said, well, if Dropkick wants to come in and do the 3 songs for our corporate event live to tape, we'll honor their contract for it, and we'll just air that as an intranet within the company for our online corporate event. And that's how it all started. And so we started making plans for that, and all of a sudden the guys from Ultrasound and Events United said, we could also live stream stuff. Yeah. And all the light bulbs went off in everybody's head and said, hey, you know what? Let's do this. We'll do the 3 songs for our corporate client. And the corporate client came back and said, well, if you want to do the live stream, we'll take care of all the onboarding and everything else necessary. And it went from doing 3 songs to doing a full St. Patty's live stream in about 32 hours.
Yeah. And if I read right, I'm just stunned by how good this kind of went for you guys. I mean, the quality of it was fantastic. And you guys drew about 10 million people to that. Is that right?
Yeah.
That is
there was
impressive,
over 10 million views worldwide for that.
Yeah, that is so cool. Yeah, like I said, I was really impressed with the quality of it, et cetera, especially at that time, because everybody was kind of scrambling to get their world together and figure out what they were going to do. And you guys just seemed to bing, bing, right into it. Here we go.
Well, I mean, and none of us really knew what to expect from it. They've got a couple, visual design rooms where guys can go in and do WYSIWYG stuff or previs. So I took my front of house console and set up in one of those rooms with some near fields and just recalled my live show file and just kind of tweaked that to cater for a live stream. But I mean, really, all of us were just kind of by the seat of our pants, just treating it as, just another day doing a live show. And I don't think any of us realized how big this thing was going to turn out, or the impact. But we're still pretty shocked by it, but it
You
was
still got
pretty
to be
epic.
buzzed by it. I mean, it's got to be
Oh, yeah.
really exciting. I mean, the amount of doors that's got to open, it's just got to be breathtaking.
The fun thing was watching along with some of the platforms. There was a bunch of different platforms we're on between Twitch and Zoom and YouTube. But as we're watching the video of people online, you saw families in their living rooms with their little kids, and the little kids are doing a little mosh pit around the living room table, and all dancing the Irish jigs. And so it was pretty inspiring, getting the feedback from a virtual crowd online. That we could watch and really see them enjoying themselves. That was really pretty unique.
Well, given you guys' crowd, I don't think you'd have to twist their arm very hard to get them engaged. I mean, that's a pretty engaged crowd.
Absolutely.
I love it. Well, let's kind of move forward a little bit. And, certainly one of the things we want to talk about today is this big Fenway gig that you did. I say big Fenway gig. It was an empty stadium.
Yeah.
But give us the background on that. How did it kind of turn into that opportunity? I'm assuming this happened during the baseball season, which, no fans, et cetera. So,
well, this was a precursor to baseball season. MLB was still in discussions and hadn't figured out what they were going to do yet. So the company that helped us, this corporate client, Pegasystems out of Boston, Dropkick Murphys wanted to strike while the iron was hot. We were just coming off of doing the St. Paddy's Day stream, and as with anything, you want to move on to the next gag, bigger and better. And so conversations far above my pay grade started to happen, and because of their close relationship with Fenway and the Red Sox, and their close relationship with the city. Discussions started about doing it, and our corporate client Pegasystems became our corporate sponsor for the event. So all the planning process for this was really the concert itself was really an afterthought. The pre-planning for how we were going to deal with the health and safety standards, how we were going to deal with social distancing, how were we going to cap our numbers of people allowed in the workspace. Yeah. Those were the main priorities. I mean, we've all done thousands of rock shows, so the tech side of it from that standpoint, that's our everyday gig. But this approach to it was the unique part. They capped us total band and crew. That's including video and audio production. They capped us at 35 people. And it was as rigid as, once we hit 35, if a 36th person shows up, someone's got to leave.
Right.
And the other added pressure was in working on this social distancing approach for a live stadium like this, it became apparent that if we weren't able to pull this off, that this could jeopardize bringing baseball back. It would prove to the powers that be, like, look, you prove that it can't be done. The safety thing just didn't work out or whatever. So there was a lot of pressure on us for it.
I was going to say, no pressure, Pete. No pressure, man.
Yeah. And in the end, we got through all the health and safety standards, and all of a sudden it's like, well, wait a minute. Now we need to look at it from a different aspect of, a lot of this the equipment is heavy. So it's not a one person can just grab a case and move it. Now you need two guys on a road case, and they're face to face, having to lift a case or move a console or stuff like that. So we kind of had to go back to the drawing, take a couple steps back and look at it from now the live concert standpoint of how do we change our roles? How do we interact with our crew as guitar techs and sound engineers and every other facet of the production, and between band and management and all the crew, we really came up with a great game plan of how we were going to address that. The groundskeeping crew at Fenway was absolutely amazing and very helpful in that manner, allowing us to. We were the first band that's been allowed to set up on the infield at the stadium.
I noticed that.
And,
I saw that in the video. I was like, wow, they let them set up on the infield.
On the infield. Cow. And the groundskeeper was a little nervous at first, but, our production manager really worked hand in hand with them and showed them that, we had the utmost respect for their field, and we were happy to do whatever it would take to protect all the landscaping, all that went into it. but that was a big challenge, you know. And then the way that everybody set up, you know, it was just making sure everybody was distanced. You know, I mean, I had my front of house console. I was in the home team dugout with my Pro Tools op, and that was it. There was nobody else allowed in my dugout.
Yeah.
Our video world was set up in the visitors dugout, and it was just two of them. And then the way the band was, I mean, our crew was set up on the first and the third base lines, you know, 15, 20 feet away from each other. And then the band itself, you know, we had our drummer set up on his riser just behind second base, guitar players on first and third. You know, the other couple guys right in between, like in the shortstop areas, if you will. Yeah. And then our two singers, you know, Ken and Al, kind of running around the pitcher's mound. Yeah. So there was plenty of room to run around and maneuver, but you had to be very conscious. The other thing that was tough too is, you know, at the last second, we're like, well, wait a minute, we need to sound check microphones. So how are we going to handle microphones for this? So in the end, what we decided was, both myself and my monitor engineer, Johnny, we both had dedicated microphones just to ourselves. And it was really just walking over. You'd go to their mic stand, unplug their microphone from the stand, plug your dedicated mic in to check it. So nobody ever spoke into another musician's microphone. Same thing with guitar changes. It was, you know, if a guitar change needed to happen, they were in gloves, masks, take the instrument down, to get wiped down with alcohol and bleach. And same thing, handing the guitar off. You would never hand the guitar directly to the musician. It would go on a stand remotely a few feet away from them, and they'd come and get it, so that we were never more than 10, 15 feet from the artist.
Right,
so,
yeah.
Yeah, it was bizarre.
It just dawned on me too, and I can't believe I hadn't thought of this earlier, but you were talking about 35 people as your capacity on crew.
Yeah.
Did that include labor?
Yeah.
Wow.
We were our own labor. You know, what we did was, you know, as with most live events like that, usually the band isn't present until a little bit later in the day.
Yeah.
So, you know, we had, you know, some of our other friends in Boston who are also other touring members who work for a variety of different bands. They came in, were our load-in crew. Some of our staff from Ultrasound was there to help get the gear in. And once it was in, then they would leave, and now you would look at your numbers, see where you're at with your numbers, and the next wave of people could come in.
You know, it's like having a fixed roster in baseball, right? I mean,
it really was.
Put somebody on the reserve list.
It. Yeah, somebody send in the lefty. You know, it was
awesome.
interesting for sure.
So, you know, obviously you were mixing from the dugout there. I mean, it just begs the question. I got to ask all these seemingly, you know, innocent and elementary questions. So were you mixing monitors for the band as well?
No. Our monitor engineer, he was set up right by first base. So he was like in the warm-up area where you might see like the first base ump.
Yeah.
In between first and home. So he was set up there. So I probably had about 30 feet between myself and my monitor engineer. And even being that close, we were just on comms as we needed to be.
Right.
You know, we're both on the same consoles.
Obviously, you track this to Pro Tools. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And so did you remix in post, or was there a live version of it that you mixed to a stream?
That was it. It was live.
Right.
It was live.
That was that, and you were providing the audio for that?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. That is
so what we did is, you know, we loaded in. I think we loaded in on Tuesday morning of that week. The event was on Friday. We loaded in and started getting everything up on Tuesday of that week, and then the band started sound checking Wednesday afternoon. You know, we had a crew line check with everything on Tuesday evening. Band showed up on Wednesday. We started doing some rehearsals. And then we heard that there was some weather coming in, potentially for Friday and Saturday.
Boston? Really?
Yeah, some East Coast.
Seems plausible.
So what we did was we went into it on Thursday, planning to record the entire rehearsal on Thursday, but it was a full dress rehearsal, just in case we had rain on the day of the event. We had some kind of gag planned where, we'd have, we'd have a pre-recorded video of the band guys sitting in the dugout with their umbrellas, getting poured. I'd be like, well, guys, we're really sorry about this. Good thing we recorded it last night as well, And so we had pre-taped it on Thursday night, but that gave me the option to go back and sit there for hours and just go into virtual soundcheck mode and just sit there and really refine my mix and tweak it, which was really a lot of help. A lot of help. Great. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Well, and if what you were doing wasn't complex enough and logistically challenged enough, let's throw in that you're going to have Bruce Springsteen show up on the scoreboard and perform remotely with the band, right?
Yeah.
As if you needed anything else dumped in your lap there. Let's talk that through a little bit. I mean, I think that's where most of the gray hair came from. Initially, Bruce and the Dropkicks have a long relationship. They've been friends for a long time. Bruce has done some stuff. He sang on a couple guest appearances on their albums. He's performed live with them once or twice. Predating my tenure here, unfortunately, I never got to be a part of that. But when the discussion started, Bruce was really excited to do it, and of course, obviously wanted to be there in person to do it, and that was the original plan. But as this was still so early on. I mean, these discussions for Fenway started probably mid-April. So that was the initial plan, but nobody knew. I think everybody was just kind of still like, let's just kind of hang on and wait. This thing's going to be gone in a couple of weeks. Let's just play it safe for now. So that was the initial plan, was that this thing was going to go away and Bruce would come and we'd do it live and try and pull it off like that. So in the end, safety won over on everything. So what we ended up doing was I had the band record the two songs in their rehearsal space, took the Pro Tools sessions and sent them down to Bruce's people. So Bruce and his engineer overdubbed to those tracks, and when they captured it, on the video, they recorded our click track into the left channel of the video camera's audio, and recorded Bruce's vocals into the right channel. So when we got the embedded video back from them, we just sent the video up to Fenway's skybox, up to their video control room, and had them do the playback from up there. So we basically took the audio from that video recording, pumped the click into the guy's in-ears, and Bruce's vocals into our monitors and into my front of house desk. And, I think we had to nudge a couple frames of delay just to try and get a little closer with a little bit of the latency just in the, sync between, the audio and the video coming down from the control room. Right.
But really, it was pretty amazing. And I think the guys got it in, a take or two.
Oh, it looks fantastic. It looks and sounds fantastic. I mean, you guys pulled that off really, really great. Well, let's jump into venue land here a little bit and talk about what you're doing there. I mean, obviously, you kind of laid out that how important virtual sound check was to you to pull this off. As I understand it, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. You were a profile user, right? And
yes,
was
sir.
that your first move into digital from analog?
The first move I made was actually into the Yamaha PM5D. That was my first introduction into a digital console, and I had kind of toyed around. I do studio stuff as well. So seeing the O1Vs, I do a lot of system integration and studio design. So I'd been around the digital consoles, but in terms of touring with one and seeing the ease of recall and just everything at your fingertips, just not carrying up 20 racks full of 1,000 pounds worth of gear was still new to me. So when I was able to when I was able to get into a situation where we could afford to carry production, I went with the profile, and I was never happier. I loved it. Loved it.
Great.
So it's just been a natural progression from there on up.
And did you, so when you moved over to S6L, how did you find that transition? Did it, even though, the surface looked completely different, et cetera, was it like, well, I still know what this is. I mean, is it, this is still
Yeah.
venue.
The approach to the console, it took me a day at the shop to kind of learn, your motions, where you're reaching to grab things, your tactile movements.
Yeah.
That took me a little bit to get used to, but in terms of just intuitive operation, I found the console to be very easy just to dive into from the ground up. It was great. The only thing that threw me was, and it was really weird, so I took my profile show file and threw that in the S6L. So, we really didn't have much. We didn't have any rehearsals. I took the console. We did a small venue at Gillette Stadium. There's a small pub and live venue there. So we did a small event there. That was my first time actually in a real set of speakers with it. And I got in, and it's just something didn't quite seem right to me. And I'm tweaking and I couldn't figure it out. And then I started, I started panning a little bit, and I was like, whoa, wait a minute. And I realized that, the imaging on the S6L was so crystal clear that, with a lot of other desks out there, if you got your pan pod at 2:00, it's 2:00-ish, but these were so pinpoint. And with Dropkick, it's such a saturated mix. I mean, they're loaded down with everything really stacked in a lot of these frequency ranges, which are usually, historically problematic ranges, 200, 400, where it just, you get that little murkiness, that muddiness. So that's how I really get away with a lot of stuff is panning to get the clarity out of all these instruments simultaneously going on. So I found that now that the signal path was so much clearer, that things were kind of stepping on each other where I hadn't really noticed that as much before. And it just took me, the next show, first couple songs, just kind of retweaking where things sat spatially in the mix, not EQ-wise, just getting them in their proper places and figuring out, well, now it's a whole new palette. And once I figured that out, the depth of field of the console, the clarity of the microphones, it went from being, two-dimensional from left to right to really getting your third dimension of depth without having to wash things out with a reverb or a delay. Yeah. It just really came to life.
That's great. I'm glad to hear you say that. We spent so much time working on that aspect of it on the console. So I'm glad to hear somebody's ears appreciate that. That's really great.
I always want to keep my mix just this far above my stage volume, so I have a little bit of control over my mix and not have it infected by what's coming off the stage as much. So that was a big help with that. But with all the instrumentation, as I'd mentioned at one point, all the problematic frequency areas a lot of people run into, that 200, 400, just kind of gets a little muddy in there, a little murky. We got two, guys on Marshall stacks that are turned to 10. I've got banjo, mandola, mandolin, bouzouki, keyboards, penny whistle, bagpipes.
So
and
you're just the mid-range manager. That's what you are.
Oh my God. But see, that's the thing, that's one of the things that really becomes great. Like I was saying, a lot of the panning for the clarity to get things to sit in their place as you're looking at the stage.
Yeah.
But you find that, we all need to go and twist the EQ a little bit here and there. I look at audio as kind of, every instrument has its natural place that it's going to sit, but we're not in a perfect environment.
Right.
So a lot of times you're tweaking to make up for the imperfections in the environment. And I kind of, when people ask me how you do that, I kind of describe it as a jigsaw puzzle. You're looking, that that piece has got to fit in there, but it's only going to fit in there in one direction. Yeah. And it's really looking about the little subtle things that you can do to carve a relationship between multiple instruments and kind of get them to drop into the right spot without using so much EQ that you're starting to cause phase shift and it just making a bad situation worse. The clarity of the EQs, the compression, and the imaging really helps me let that stuff kind of settle in its own place and not have to dig into that EQ knob as hard as any of us may have had to do in other situations.
Yeah. So let's jump into maybe some feature sets or something like that. We can tunnel down a little bit here. Sure. What are some of the things in SXL and maybe even just in Venue in general that really keep you attached to that product?
A lot of the consoles have it where you have your layout functions. That was one of the big things for me with this desk. It really saved me in a couple situations, but I just found that I found it to be very intuitive and very quick and easy to go to your universe page and create layouts however you want them. Mm-hmm. And as we all know, accidents happen out on tour. So being able to recreate your entire input list on different layers for redundancy. So, I do my layouts where I have my first couple layouts, my layers are 1-to-1 as you would see it on your input list. But then it starts going down, and now my input list is flipped on different layers. So if a beer hits the console or something goes down on one end, I can go anywhere on that desk and still have a bucket of faders available to me at any point. Not to mention, I take a very old school approach to it. I mix a lot on my groups. I don't mix on my VCAs. I mix on groups. I have no plugins on any of my input channels. All my plugins are just on groups, and it's just a little bus compression. So being able to always have certain things within hand's reach on the surface at all times, my main vocals, guitars for guitar solos and their corresponding, if I have some sort of effect on it or something, mm-hmm. At any given point, I know which layer to go to where that is laid out, and I can have hands on all of those at the same time. So that's been a big help, and it actually we had one situation. I'd mentioned beer getting thrown. That's a popular
does that
sport.
kind of thing happen at a Dropkick Murphys
Yeah,
show?
more than you would ever know. I think in my 7
really?
years, I've replaced 4 consoles. Not kidding. So this, in fact, this last tour that we did in February of this year, we were in a venue in Germany. And I didn't see it coming, but it was a full 64-ounce cup of beer landed straight upside down into the center section of the console. First song of the set. So I'm panicked, and all of a sudden I hear the volume in the PA start to up and down. I look over, and I always latch my master fader to one of the selectable faders, and I can see that fader kind of jumping. It's like, so first thing over, I've got a hotkey set up in events to kill everything, basically lock the console, and I was using a Lake system, so I muted the Lake, and I'm like, all right, so we need to get the master faders unassigned, and throughout the rest of the show, I have towels next to me at all times. I didn't even have enough time. There was so much beer that went into that console so fast. There was no beer for me to wipe up. It all went right in.
Oh my gosh.
So as we're going along, now we're in song 2, song 3. Other faders start jumping on you. You see lights start flickering, and all of a sudden, the fader goes dead on you, and it's like, all right, go to this layer, or. A big life-saving thing in the console was being able to unassign your buckets at any time. Yep. So by probably the last quarter of the set, I was down to mixing the entire show on one bucket of 8 faders and had recreated layouts throughout every layout, every layer page, was just the next inputs on 8 faders. And that's how I mixed the entire show. And then that started to go. I had all my touchscreens unassigned. I had everything in the console was unassigned except for that last 8 faders. And even that at the end of the show went. So now I'm mixing the last 3 or 4 songs in the encore with my finger on the touchscreen.
Oh my gosh.
I had no control over the console whatsoever.
Pete, I'm gonna be honest with you. When we're R&D in R&D developing these consoles, we're not designing for that situation.
Well, it's funny because
it's great that we handled it, but we don't design for that situation.
No, and who would? But it was funny because we called our audio provider, my A1 at front of house. I looked over and I'm mixing the show and I see him on the phone. It's like, why is he on the phone? We got problems over here. And then I realized he's on the phone with the company's owner. And he already let them know what happened. And as we're not even done with the show yet, and a new console's being thrown on the truck and getting shipped out to the next show in the morning. So the owner of the console, we use Go Audio in Europe. So the owner showed up the next morning and we were talking, and he said it's very common there. And he said the place where it happens quite a bit is in the Netherlands at the big summer festivals. They get a lot of the folk acts and whatnot.
Yeah.
He said, but you'd be surprised how much beer goes. He said, so a lot of these companies have built themselves little aftermarket plexiglass covers that stand about a foot off the top of the console so that they can still keep their hands underneath this plexiglass and still work, but no beer can get in. I said, it's that big a problem that you've created this product? And I was like, you should have warned me.
It's raining beer.
Yeah, that's just criminal. Who wants to waste a $15 beer?
Yeah, right. I was going to say it happened in the first song. If it would have been a 6th song, it would have probably been a quarter full. It wouldn't have, would have been as much beer. Given what we've seen out of the Murphys for the last 7 or 8 months, I'm sure you guys have work lined up and getting ready to do more things. Tell us what you got going on. Are you guys in studio, or you got more live streaming events planned? What do you got going on?
We got a little bit of it all going on. The band has been in the studio. We started the writing process last fall. The band were writing some new stuff, and we had a lot of placeholders of songs from the previous album, some thoughts and ideas that they just kind of put on the back burner. They had enough for the record, and they figured they'd work on these more. So those kind of came into fruition. So they're back in the studio now. The record's almost done. Album should be released, I want to say, hopefully, looking sometimes around St. Patty's, which
Seems
will correspond.
Apropos.
Yeah, which will correspond with our next live stream.
I can't even imagine what your next performance at Fenway is going to be like. It's just going to be unbelievable when that stadium is packed and the Murphys come back there. Look out.
I can't wait. Dave Grohl, we did a show with the Foo Fighters there a couple years back at Fenway. And after the show, Dave came back and he's just like, are you kidding me? He's like, and it was like kind of the joke. He's like, you're never opening for us here.
Right.
Like this, like we had Dropkick Murphys, Boston, we get it, and we figured it'd be a great match, but my God, your fans were savages out there. Like
right.
We're on the wings watching your set and like, how are we going to come out? Like, this is great. But all joking aside, I can't wait to get back there and just see our fans. And that's one thing that's great about the Murphys. They've got such a following, but they're such a tight-knit, hardcore group of fans that we see in every city at every show.
Yeah.
So it's always like family. You see them dead center up against the barricade every night, and as soon as we're done loading out, we know where they're hanging out to go have a beer, and they're always a nice warm handshake and a nice cold beer, and it's nice to be able to have fans like that.
That's fun. That's a good environment to be in.
Yeah.
Right. Well, Pete, man, I can't thank you enough for coming in and doing this and chatting with you. It's been great catching up on this stuff. I absolutely love it.
The honor, the privilege is all mine, man. I'm really flattered that you guys asked me, and big thanks to Ryan John as well.
All right, Pete, thanks so much, man. I appreciate it. We'll pull the ripcord here, and we'll see you out on the road.